Afternoon, Black Hawk Brigade. COL Andrew Morgado here for our fourth installment of our podcast leadership development program. So over the last three periods, we focused on education and training, some general marketing and recruiting. We did some risk assessment, and today we're specifically going to cover scholarships and incentives program. What I found over about the last 18 months of command or so is that there continues to be some confusion about what is the scholarship process, how do we do it here in 3rd Brigade, which I acknowledge is a little bit different perhaps than other brigades do it. So my intent here is to kind of level bubbles, and then obviously about a month or so from the release of the tape, we'll sit down, we'll talk about it, and definitely encourage your input. So with that, understanding why am I going to scholarships and recruiting, we spend a lot of time on that, because I've previously stated is that within the command, 4 essential priorities. First is leader development, which is number 1. Number 2 is recruiting, that's how we get people, organization, followed by our admin, or human resources, and then logistics. So our podcast, our LPD is focused on our top 2 priorities. That's why I keep reinforcing the message. That's why we're on this topic. So, scholarships incentives. And so why are we talking about it? Well, the bottom line is scholarships is one of the most powerful tools that we have within Cadet Command to draw quality prospect to our ranks. So number 1, it is to attract quality. As we see how it pans out, how we retain cadets throughout the 4 years or whatever number of years that we have them for as little as 4 semesters, we retain over 97% of our scholarship cadets go all the way on to commissioning, which is an overall pretty important number for us. 85% of all our scholarships, 85% of all our cadets are on some sort of scholarship. So that is a huge number, and obviously that is a big incentive for us. And 32% of those are on a guaranteed reserve forces duty scholarship. Now, so the bottom line is about show me the money, right? We have got to show or have some sort of incentive that will attract folks to our organization, because college, bottom line, is expensive, right? So cadets need the money in order to get through college, or at least a great portion of them do. But here's a dirty little secret, right? Well, I guess it's not so dirty and it's not so much of a secret, but when we talk about these retention numbers, involves their periods as cadets only. So what happens to these scholarship winners as they go on and matriculate or become commissioned officers in our Army, and then how long do they serve? Well, the bottom line is 3- and 4-year scholarship winners spend the least amount of time within our Army. Generally speaking, once their obligations complete, on active duty, you can see the really micro fine print I have on here. It's an 8-year total obligation, but normally 4 years is the active duty. Historically, 4- and 3-year AD scholarship winners get out at a higher rate at exactly what their 4-year mark or wherever their obligation is due. So what does all that mean, right? So scholarships are important to what we do, but scholarships and money isn't everything that we do. And so something else has to draw folks to stay and first join with us and then stay with us all the way through commissioning. The scholarships form an important part of what we do and how we go about doing it. This accounts for $300 million a year annually in what the command spends money on. So our objective is to spend this money in the best possible way, in the smartest possible way, to keep not only our cadets within ranks all the way to commissioning, but inspire a longer career of service within our Army. So that's what scholarships are all about. So that being said, what kind of scholarships are there? So I have to, I'm sure the Cadet Command regulation would, whoever wrote it will do cheetah flips when they look at my characterization, but I had to translate what I see from a tanker's perspective, right? I got a tanker in mind here, of the different types of categories and why it matters to you. I would say up front there are 2 major distinctions within our scholarship process. We have the national process, which is run for high school seniors, right, to become college freshmen, and we do that on a national basis. And then all the others kind of go back to what I call a campus-related scholarship, right, and have their own separate category as well. So these 3 are primary ones that I want to really emphasize with you today, and then overall what we can award at the campus base. So look at that, our national, right? Generally speaking, it's a Cadet Command run entity in terms of a centralized web page that we encourage our candidates, our high school seniors, actually beginning in their junior year, to go to enroll run through the entire process of getting various documentation together. We receive a list of what schools that they're interested in, and then we, at the local level, help students through the process and complete, and more importantly, we try and entice them to come to our campus, right? So that's how the National Scholarship works. At the end of the day, they'll award 2,000 scholarships for our cohort, 1,000 four-year scholarships, and 1,000 three-year, not active duty. The AD does not stand for active duty, it stands for advanced designee, meaning that they'll arrive and will not start receiving benefits until the second year as a college student. All right, GRFD, Guaranteed Reserve Forces Duty. I'll go into a little more detail on these, but these scholarships are designed specifically for cadets who want to go into the reserve component, either the Army Reserve or the National Guard, and that's how they sign their contract and what they're obligated to do, and I'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly. The Minuteman. Minuteman I've kind of put in its own unique category. It's only been around, this is its second year. The truly unique thing about Minuteman, well actually there's two things. First, the most unique thing is that it's the only way that we can award a 4-year Guaranteed Reserve Forces Duty Scholarship. A normal GRFD, in terms of it's enshrined in policy and law, maximum 3 year. A Minuteman, 3.5 year. A Minuteman scholarship can be a 4-year scholarship. The second important thing about the Minuteman is that where we receive nominations for it, and really that's really the true beauty of a Minuteman scholarship comes into play, because it brings in the support and assistance and overall, support and assistance of our civilian aides to the Secretary of the Army, our Reserve Forces ambassadors, our U.S. Army Reserve ambassadors, and our TAGs, our state adjutant generals. The Cadet Command has given those personages the ability to nominate highly competitive, highly selective, highly qualified students to receive Minuteman scholarships. So that's the two real neat parts about the Minuteman. Fast Track. Fast Track, again, I'll go into it more in a little bit later in a little more detail. However, that is a brigade program to kind of move the process faster, right? To give and allocate more authority at the PMS level to contract and even award scholarships in some instances, which I'll describe to you in a quicker way, right? So we get cadets enrolled faster, right? Just high quality. They've clearly, we've tested them. We've kind of gauged what their level of commitment is, and we know we want them on our team. So that gives PMSs a little more leeway. And generally then on campus through our board process, right, which I'll talk about a little bit later, is a way to discriminate the very highest quality and get them a scholarship or a contract. And we'll talk about what kind of segregates all those or classifies each one of those. All right, so types. As you can see, we can award anything from a 2-year graduate scholarship all the way to a 4-year scholarship. Now, one of the things that we always get is, well, if I'm going to college for 4 years, that's 8 semesters, right? I got it. There are several schools that are on a quarter system, and that will vary. But we can award up to 10 semesters maximum in a 4-year scholarship, right? What that does is particularly helpful for our engineering students, our STEM students who require that additional time in many of our programs of study in order to complete their degree. So that gives us some additional scholarships. The important thing to know in terms about a length of scholarship and all those special categories out there, whether they be quarters, whether they be engineers who get awarded a scholarship in other than a 4-year increment, is the number of authorized semesters. It's driven by the 104R, which is the academic worksheet. What is that is completed in the initial scholarship application will determine the number of semesters that cadet will ultimately be awarded. And so if there's any variations or slips in the process, either not due to the cadet's fault or some change in academics or the cadet's status, it's important to know how many semesters they were authorized at the very beginning of their contract or scholarship, and that will determine how we compensate for any ripples in the force as that cadet proceeds. So those are types and categories. We'll go into a little more detail here in just a second. Okay, so let's talk about the special category of the Minuteman. As stated previously, it is the only 4-year guaranteed reserve force duty option that's available to us. And as I mentioned, the second most important part about that is that strategic partnership that we create with our TAGs, and one category I forgot to mention was the major subordinate commands within our reserve, generally speaking a 2-star billet, is authorized nominations, as in our COSA, Civilian Aid, Secretary of the Army, and our Army Reserve Ambassadors. Now, in previous years, there have been unlimited categories, meaning a tag could provide an unlimited number, or a COSA or an ARA, based upon how scholarships were available. Now, due to its overwhelming popularity, and I'll talk to you some of the troubles that we've had with it. I guess troubles might not be the right word, but some of the unforeseen circumstances or unforeseen effects that we've had on it, we've had to modify it and allocate certain authorizations per category. So, for instance, Army National Guard, a state adjutant general, will have 6 total nominations per tag position, limited to 2 4-years, and the remaining being 3-year advanced designee or below. And we've also then, as you can see on this chart, decremented all the other positions as well in terms of how they're allocated. Now, the key part to remember about the Minuteman is that this is a guaranteed reserve forces duty contract, meaning that when a cadet signs that contract, they're obligating themselves to service within the reserve component. Now, I say that there's benefit and danger. This is a great benefit when someone understands and knows they want to serve the reserve component because they want to pursue a civilian career in whatever specialty or stay close to home, whatever the case might be, and reserve component duty fits their personal circumstances the best. The danger is when we sign someone up for a guaranteed reserve forces duty when they're not set on guaranteed reserve forces duty, meaning that, hey, they want to kind of explore this active duty option, potentially they want to keep their options open. So unfortunately, over the past year, we've found instances where we bring a cadet on board with a Minuteman that guarantees them reserve forces duty, then they change their mind, meaning then, hey, I really don't want to do reserve force duty anymore, I really want to compete for active duty. Well, now they can't. Well, actually, the only way they can do it is that they completely revoke or turn back and disenroll and have to pay back any sort of scholarship benefit that they may have received already. So PMSs, SMIs, RUs, anyone involved in the recruiting process, which should be everybody, needs to understand this, right? So when we pitch a Minuteman, we've got to be totally upfront with what we mean, and that the cadet or the candidate needs to understand exactly what his or her options are. Let's not put our candidates in a bad position because we sold them on a Minuteman and they really want to stay competitive for active duty, meaning eligible to compete for active duty as a viable career option. So please remember that about the Minuteman. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit more about guaranteed reserve forces duty. There are 2 types, right? We call it a dedicated GRFD and a regular GRFD. Regular doesn't have a name, it's just GRFD. But the key word here, the key topic here is that once we grant a guaranteed reserve forces duty scholarship, it assigns an irrevocable, or I wrote down irreversible here, control number, meaning that that cadet is now tracked as guaranteed reserve forces, and upon their accessions, that control number guides them into the reserve component. There is no way for us to take that control number off without disenrolling the cadet and making them pay back any potential scholarship benefit that they have received. Now, what dedicated means is that dedicated, they specify what component at the outset of creating that scholarship, meaning I am a cadet, I want a 2-year scholarship, I want to dedicate it to the Army National Guard, meaning that upon accessions, I'm guaranteed a seat in the National Guard, or I'm guaranteed a seat in the United States Army Reserve, but I specify that up front. What a normal GRFD, it's only a maximum of 4 semesters, right? So another key difference between max 6 semesters, again, I'm talking outside of Minuteman. Minuteman is a special program that goes to 4-year option. So dedicated is 6 semesters or 3 years. A GRFD gives you the option of what specific reserve component, whether it be Army Reserve or National Guard, at the accessions process, and it's only 4 semesters long. So dedicated puts you in the Army National Guard or Army Reserve at the outset. GRFD gives you that option of the 2, but still in a reserve component when we run our accessions process. So that is what guaranteed reserve forces duty looks like. Okay, so as you know, we at the brigade level, in 3rd Brigade, run a brigade board to assess cadet quality points, right? And to put a detached look and review at what each individual program is doing and who they're looking to award scholarships to. So why do I do it? Well, it's not because I'm power hungry, right? It's not because I just need to have all this control of scholarship dollars at the brigade level. That is not the reason why we do it. It's not about me. Well, we do brigade boards for a number of reasons. And I know I mentioned it at our last PMS SMI workshop, but just to restate here. First is that we have to assign what's called the Cadet Quality Index points to every candidates board as they're enrolled in CSIM. This is still a requirement. It is in regulation that we have to do. So this allows us to assign CQI points in an equitable manner. Okay, probably not as important as the next two, right? That's probably the least important of the next three reasons. Next is control and manage budget. I do not want PMSs, SMIs, and BRUs worried about how much scholarship money that they have left. I want you to go find quality people, and you let us at Brigade Headquarters and Higher figure out where we're going to get the money to do that. Now, it may come up to a point that I have to make an economic decision based upon whether we're allowed to offer a scholarship at your school or not, but that is a big deal that I would prefer to do here, and based on discussions with our RUs, the vast majority of them feel that they don't want the responsibility of controlling that budget either. PMSs might feel differently, I don't know, but overall I think it's more important that we do that here, and you stay focused on the recruiting aspect of it. Next, quality control. I think it's my duty as a commissioned officer, in order to live up to the definition of a profession, is that we screen and select our own, right, within the profession. I think it's part of my duty as brigade commander to provide that additional review or context to ensure that we have a rather consistent quality and at a high level, right, within we're offering scholarships to. Now, as I mentioned during the PMS SMI workshop, right, I know how PMSs operate, right, and I know some of the deviousness that goes on in their mind. And what I can say is I know that because I was a PMS too, right? So there are times that we are so close to a candidate or a problem is that we fall in love with them in a very platonic sense, right? We want to get that cadet in the roles. All that is fine and good. This just provides us a second view, probably to protect SMIs and PMSs at the program level, to give that additional quality control check to ensure that we're bringing just the very best online. So that's why we do it. Then, in addition, which I call below the line reasons of why we have that brigade oversight, is this allows us some consistency and some interface with Cadet Command, and that this new concept that just recently, as of this semester, that we can no longer award interim awards. So this provides us some ability to see and ask for very specific cases at the brigade level for exceptions to policy to award deserving cadets scholarship benefits with interim. So that's why we have brigade oversight of the scholarship process and why we run brigade scholarship boards. You can disagree, and I understand that, and I look forward to the discussion that we'll have here once we have the telecon to discuss it. So, that being said. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of these special scholarships that you've heard about. They fall under that category 5 on one of the earlier charts of things that we can provide on campus, but they don't fit neatly into any category. But Cadet Command has laid out to us really 3 different kinds of special scholarships, right? First and foremost is the nurse, and probably we commission 22 nurses a year, but many of you are familiar with the nurse. It's important because it's a different pot of money, right? So we have our line scholarship budget, and then we have a nurse scholarship budget, which is managed completely separate from a monetary perspective. Before awarding or submitting for, before submitting for a scholarship, a nurse scholarship, our brigade nurse counselors have to interview the candidate and provide their assessment. Our nurse counselors in the nurse program, our nurse counselors are given to us by the Department of the Army through the Army Nurse Corps. They are specifically here to do and manage the nurse program and provide you subject matter expertise. That's why they're here, right? So that's why they have to counsel and review and screen those candidates, because they know exactly what it takes to become an Army nurse, because they are Army nurses. We need a letter of acceptance from the College of Nursing from that school. And in the event that that nurse has to leave the nursing program, only Cadet Command can approve any sort of change of major and then to change it to a regular line scholarship if it comes to that. So that's a nurse scholarship. Next is a language scholarship, meaning that if a cadet is pursuing a degree of study in a strategic language, we can find a separate pot of money to pay for that additional scholarship. And then finally, which is a little more common, is our STEM scholarships. If a cadet knows they want to be a STEM, will complete their degree, particularly in engineering, we can award them a STEM scholarship which uses a special brand of money, a color of money. So in any of these cases, whenever there's a change of major, there is going to be a loss of 1 semester worth of benefits to change their major out of these programs. And nurse, they could potentially lose their entire scholarship. It all depends on what the given situations are. So those are specials. Okay, let's talk about some process, right? All right. So I was loath to write these goals up here because whenever I write a GPA number or an APFT number, PMSs then get an idea thinking that that is the minimum threshold for anything. So we have deliberately brought these numbers down, not because we think quality is deteriorating, but to give you at least what we think is going to provide additional scrutiny. So just if you have a 2.5 GPA, it doesn't mean it'll be rejected. It just means that we, at the board level, at the brigade level, will apply a different level of scrutiny. Now, again, all this, when I talk about process, is looking at those campus-based scholarships that you will submit to us on a monthly basis. So, monthly boards. Our goal, GPA 2.6 and an APFT of 220 points with 70 points in each, with a minimum of 70 points in each event. 70, 70, 70 is 210, but overall they must score a 220. So we'll do these once per month. The application must be completed within CSIM. Once it gets up here to Brigade, there's a 3-person board which rotates amongst all our green suitors, and they vote to fall a 1- to a 6+, much like a DA board process or numbering system. And the key part that I like to emphasize to all PMSs is that on your write-up and on your nomination memo, paragraph 2 and paragraph 3 are absolute most essential, right? So if you have someone here who maybe is not quite at the 220 yet, maybe just struggling to get a 2.6, but you think that they're a tremendous officer and they deserve to get a scholarship and be an officer, you let me know here. Okay, this is where you do it, right? To emphasize and advocate for your cadet. So it behooves you to spend quality time in crafting a paragraph 3, which is the PMS comments directly to the board and to me, who is the final reviewing officer for the board's work. All right, last bit. Fast track, all right? So for fast track, really 2 kind of bands here, right? Well, let me talk about eligible categories first, right? So on the fast track, if you have a STEM designated scholarship, like I talked about on the last slide, all GRFD, both scholarship and non-scholarship, right? And then all line non-scholarship requests, all can go fast track if they meet the minimum criteria, meaning there's no need to wait for a monthly board. You can go ahead and execute these on any day that you have these packets ready. You have to get set up, all these had to be sent up to Cadet Command anyway. Once we get authorization back, when we get the notification from Cadet Command, is that we will execute immediately. So really, these 4 different categories, right, all apply. STEM scholarships, GRFD scholarship, GRFD non-scholarship, and line non-scholarship. It's no boards and no set dates. So if they meet these minimum criteria, right, first for non-scholarship, 2.6 and a 220, or if they are a GRFD scholarship and a STEM related, a 2.8 and a 220, right? So please use the fast track. What we found is that we get several packets every month that meet the fast track criteria, but PMSs and SMIs aren't familiar with the criteria and set them up in the lengthier board process. So please, this is a tool in your kit bag, PMSs, please use it. All right. All right, just a couple of tips and noteworthies from my experience of reviewing these now for 18 months. Your SAL bullets, which is paragraph 2, as I mentioned previously. Please be specific on that. Please make them quantifiable and list the great accomplishments of your cadets. If it doesn't fit in the scholar, athlete, leader category, find some way to articulate it in your kind of freestyle paragraph 3 option. Again, talk about PMS narrative and how important that is. Fast track. Please use the fast track process, right? Don't waste our time and don't waste our own time with unnecessary packets if we don't need it. And then the other side of the coin is the administrative suspension and our probation, right? Is to use those tools effectively to keep our scholarship cadets on track. For all scholarships, I need to approve admin suspension, and this might be, so I've been putting out some previously incorrect information. I was saying that you only have to notify me the first time, and the second time is I have to approve. For any scholarship that you choose not to use academic or administrative suspension, which is take their scholarship dollars away, I need to approve that. And for non-contract, only on the second time you do that, do I need to be notified? Meaning you just notify me that those are the steps that you're taking. So use those tools to your advantage and keep folks online. All right, wrap up and conclusion. So I gave you a bunch of numbers for what I think our minimum thresholds are for scholarships and contracts. Please do not fixate on those numbers. The bottom line is that there is a cadet that you think deserves to be an Army officer, submit their packet so we can review it and tell me that your vote is that they join our ranks. Just because they have below that threshold is not a showstopper. Please don't take it that way. Don't worry about contract thresholds. I know it's part of our BISMR process and we always talk about what our thresholds are. Don't worry about thresholds. Let us manage it here at Brigade and we'll reallocate. Some schools won't use all of them, some of you will exceed them. If you find a quality candidate on your campus or wherever that you're going to matriculate into your program at a host or a partnered institution, get them in, we'll figure out what the caps mean and we'll reallocate resources. So, I look forward to the discussion we'll have on this, but I wanted to have all of you kind of review this from my perspective. Here are the things that are on my mind and what is guiding our actions, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. Blackhawks.